Hello everyone here in Leeds and in London. This is our Sprint 45 NHS.UK show and tell. We've got a live link down into London, so we're going to do some presentations here on our progress from Sprint 45, and then we're going to switch over to London, and then we're going to save all questions for the end. For people based in Leeds, you'll see on your chairs you've got an information sheet, a post-it and a pen, just where Steve is presenting the retro board from our show and tell. Thank you, Steve. If you've got any feedback for us after the show and tell, please do leave us some, and also save any questions on your post-its and pens for the end. So that should be removed. So a quick reminder, we're a team based over 2 sites. We've got lots of people, and we've got some new announcements on new people who are coming, which I'll save for later. So on to our Leeds sprint goals. Our number one goal for the last few sprints has been to actually deploy our pharmacy collection connection onto the stomachache page on beta, and we're very, very, very nearly there with that. I'm going to leave Joe, who's going to do a quick presentation of that later. We've also made some efforts to build a contactless pharmacy service connection. So at the moment we're just working on one page, the stomachache page. So we've done some design work and some build work to make this easier to move on to build onto other pages. We've also done some work, it's not quite there yet, to add exceptional opening times and dates for pharmacies. So this is when pharmacies have things like bank holidays or training days. How do we represent that for the use onto the screen? And we've done some work on that but not yet completed it. We have gone out and we've tested the beta in Beta Pharmacy Finder with some users, which Nick's going to do a presentation on later. And we set out to do some prep for exploring a GP journey, which is going to go into the next sprint. That was a stretch target. So I'm going to hand over to Joe, who's going to do a bit about Leeds hiring.
Thanks, Tom. Hi, everyone. Hi, London. Okay, yeah, so let's just start with a quick hiring update. So, I always get that. That's pretty small. Okay, so content designers, we've got Dean starting here in Leeds, I think next week. User researchers, we've got a couple of offers out. There's some potential blockers on those, so we put another call out, we have another first interview scheduled. Got an offer out to a designer, and we've got a second interview scheduled for a designer next week. We've got someone we want to bring in a second interview stage for developers, and we've got a bunch more CVs to review. Delivery managers, I think we need to start looking again. WebOps Adam is going to join our team. There's Adam there. Sometime this week or next week, we'll figure that out, but Adam's going to come and work with us for a bit from the live service ops team here in Leeds. And a clinician, I think Rishi joins today. I don't know if you're in London, Rishi. Hello if you are. But he's going to work with both the London and Leeds teams. So lots of new people coming in. Sorry, I'm just not standing on the cross. Sorry, Dom. So that's hiring update for Leeds. And I think, it's more of me, sorry. So this is slightly blandly named update called delivery progress, but we have lots of little things going on in this last sprint, and it felt like they wouldn't really justify a kind of show and tell item in their own right. So I'm just going to whiz through a number of things we've done, and if you're interested in knowing more about it, ask a question at the end, or talk to me, or talk to the relevant people who've been working on it. So, as Don mentioned, our main aim was to get this pharmacy journey linked up. We are almost there. I was hoping we would be there. We got delayed slightly by the privacy impact assessment on Hotjar, which I'll talk about a bit more in a moment. The journey it's deployed. It's the link from the stomachache page that's not out there yet, and the pull request for that went in yesterday. And so we just need our friends in London to have a look at that and merge and deploy that, and then it will all be linked up. We'll actually have something that people can go to and go through on beta. So it will look a little bit like this. Actually, it won't look like this because the styling's changed slightly, so the header and footer will look different from when I took these screenshots. But there is a link over here on a stomachache page to find an open pharmacy near you, and then you can put a postcode in and you can see some pharmacies. And this is what we've been out testing, and Nick will talk about that in a moment. Note that we've kept like this context here. This talks about the things related to stomachache that a pharmacy is going to be able to help you with, because we're trying to get this idea of reassuring people that we're showing places that can help them. Of course, as Don mentioned, that kind of means that this is effectively hard-coded to only work for stomachache. So one of the things we did this sprint was build a version of this where we took this context out. So for many other conditions and symptoms, you will be able to have a link and you'll be able to find a pharmacy, note that the text has disappeared, and it will show you a list of nearby open pharmacies. What we might do next is work on the ability to add that context in for any number of other symptoms or conditions, but that's just the next stage in the iteration of this feature. So talk to Stephen and to Michael in London about getting this link added into the symptoms and conditions pages that are already out there on beta, and there's a bunch more simple conditions being worked on, which I think we're going to hear about in a bit from Henrik and Stephen, I think. And this may feature in some of those where a pharmacy is a relevant service for someone with that condition or symptom. I mentioned Hotjar, so we are using, wow, that's big, we are using this tool, Hotjar, to gather feedback from people who use the beta pages. It's going through, because we're capturing data from users, we have to go through this thing called a privacy impact assessment. That's still going through, but Pete's given us a thumbs up that this is all good and we can use this to capture data. Nick did some good work in a bit of digging in finding out that Hotjar were not going to use the data in any way. So yeah, we're going to try that out. It'll be really interesting to see how that works as a feedback mechanism. We made some accessibility improvements. So because we're now building a real thing, a real service, this has to work for everyone, no matter if they are partially sighted or have some other accessibility need. That's really important. This works for everybody. So Michael did some work, went through various checklists all based on the WCAG guidelines, I believe, and made some changes. I think improving things like keyboard navigation, improvements around how it works with the screen reader. This was one of the screens that needed some work around title and focus. So yeah, we got our eye on accessibility and we're trying to make improvements to that. We made some in this sprint. We added some new tracking code so we can create exciting reports like this screenshot that Kenny shared with us. So this is like a funnel report, so it's showing the traffic going through a journey and how the traffic drops off at different points. So we've only created a really simple, small journey, but we want to be able to create reports like this so we can see people going through journeys and flows and where do they drop out and so on. So we've added the relevant code so that we can create things like this. I mean, it's only a little thing, but we changed our error pages. Again, these screenshots are now actually slightly out of date because the header and footer has updated, but we wanted to create some more consistent error pages. And this is a small thing, but I think it's quite interesting because this is probably one of the first times where we've got dependencies between multiple delivery teams and then a separate ops team, because we created 404 and 500 error page for the application to serve up, but then a separate self-contained 503 error page in case the whole application falls over, and that can be served through Akamai. So we've got these like dependencies, and I think that's something that we need to continue working on and get better at figuring out how we do that. We fixed. Oh yeah, we stopped sending people to the wrong Superdrug in Leeds. So the end of the journey here is that you can get see a map and directions, and it bounces you into Google Maps. And what we weren't doing was we weren't using all of the available address data here to generate that link. So we were in fact, so Google tries to be clever, and you say, all right, Superdrug in Leeds City Centre, and it will send you to this one down at the market, and when actually it's the one up at the Merrion Centre. So just by simply including some of the address data in the link, we started sending people to the correct Superdrug. So it's a little thing, but that might make a big difference to someone if they ended up going to the wrong place and it was closed or closed down or something. Don mentioned this, the open-close status on the pharmacies now takes into account bank holidays and other holidays, or what they call exceptional dates. So we haven't actually done anything yet with the design around displaying this is a bank holiday. That might happen possibly if you were to click on one of these and it took you through to a more detailed screen about the pharmacy, we might include that there. It may be on this screen. We haven't done that bit yet, but what we have done is made sure that these things that tell you whether it's open or closed reflect the reality of whether there's a bank holiday and so on. Couple of little things, well, not little things, but a couple of things based on the fact that we're, again, moving into a production state. We need better logging so that we know what's going on, now that we're actually running an application in beta. So Steve's done some work on that, and one of the next steps will be to get that into Splunk, and maybe that's something Adam will be helping us with. And also on that, we need to know if the service is up or down and what's going on with it, so we set up monitoring with Pingdom, same as the rest of the beta.nhs.uk application, so we know what's going on. I've totally rattled through those. If you want to know more, ask a question at the end or talk to me or any of the people that I mentioned. That's just a summary of some of the things that we did in this last sprint. Thank you very much. I think... oh no, sorry, I should have removed those slides. Nick is up next to talk about our pop-up testing.
Thanks, Joe. Hello Leeds, hello London. I'm Nick, I'm a product manager working with Joe and the team in Leeds on the connecting services piece, and I'm going to talk about our day out last Tuesday to York, where we conducted a lot of interviews with people who were visiting the Unity Health Centre on the York University campus. So I'm going to start this with the user needs because effectively that drives everything we do. And I picked out the user needs from the spreadsheet that really are related to the piece of work that we're conducting in a minute. And they are, as someone with a symptom, I want to know where I can go for the right care. As someone with a symptom, I want to avoid going to a GP or entering the system if possible so I don't waste NHS resources or my own time. And as someone with a symptom, I need to know if it's possible, wise, to treat this myself so I don't have to rely on anyone else to get better. So this is really focusing with hour-like precision on the pharmacy finder. It's just people hoping to get care for themselves without having to get involved with needless trips to the GP or to a hospital accident room. So to start off with, we created a questionnaire, trying to tease out the right questions to ask people to gauge what they felt of the service that we've delivered so far to date, and we sort of spent an afternoon crafting this. And then we went to York University. There is the Unity Medical Centre, a very nice place it is too. And we set up camp in the waiting room. Don drove up early and dropped off some posters, and we dotted those around the waiting room, trying to make people aware of our presence and that we'd like to speak to them about the service that we are testing. So we spent the best part of the morning in that room, and unfortunately I didn't get the memo, but the other two had some kind of user testing outfits on, which were quite a surprise for all and sundry, but hey, at least people knew that they were part of some kind of official outfit doing some proper work. So we took a range of devices and interviewed and observed 16 attendees in total, and we also conducted an interview with the practice manager to find out from the business side of things how providing an online service might help them to manage their efficiencies. The makeup of the participants, all bar one were students with an age range sort of early 20s. 10 were women, 4 men, and they were all digital natives, so they weren't at all phased by going online to interact with the NHS service. The practice manager was actually a lot older than that, so I excluded him from that summary. We also saw something very interesting, which was they promote their own online service within the practice itself. They use a couple of third-party provided services. I'll talk about those later. But they're very, very keen to get people to interact online rather than ringing up the surgery itself. Afterwards, we retired to a bunker to assess the outcomes, and we started to sort of create some themes from what we'd seen. What were the general outcomes? Were there any positive things? Were there any really negative things? Were any sort of aspects that we hadn't thought about that we might want to accommodate into our thinking for further sprints? And we saw the following good things. A lot of praise for the self-help nature of the service, such as the pharmacy link. People were really kind of surprised at the intuitive nature. I mean, it's not massively complicated, but they felt that it all made sense and it was completely logical in terms of the questions he's asking and the journeys that were being offered. The pharmacy finder itself is very easy to use. There's no real blockers to using the pharmacy finder. I mean, we wouldn't really expect any, but people felt that actually it did exactly what it said on the tin. The information is useful, so in summary, we're not really missing anything. The service as it stands now, gives everything that people expect. There's no real kind of omissions that people expect to see that we're not currently providing. When asked, could we provide anything extra, people did come back with some challenges, which I've captured later, but there's nothing there that really made us think that actually this service is doing something wrong or is not trying to address the needs that we're looking at. Some really nice quotes. People find it really simple, very straightforward. The maps aspect with the Google Maps part was easy to use. And for a lot of those students, they were first years who were in a new, unfamiliar location, and they didn't know where their nearest pharmacy was, so they found the ability to see on a map in relation to where they actually were, where those pharmacies were, was incredibly useful. Let's not forget, though, it's quite a segmented demographic. What could we improve? So the following suggestions came back. Could we review the order of the calls to action? So some users, and this isn't many, just skipped past the find a pharmacy near you link, and it wasn't really grabbing their attention first off. They wanted to find more information to diagnose their particular perceived illness. So we probably want to conduct a little review to figure out what we can do about that. Some users suggested that they wouldn't think to go to a pharmacy. So it wasn't within their sort of train of thought to go to a pharmacy. Their first call was to go to the doctor. And if they do go to the pharmacy, they just go to pick up something that they know about already. For example, sore throat tablets, fisherman's friends, that kind of thing. They wouldn't have thought to go get medication for a particular illness outside of their comfort zone. Some users didn't understand the prominence of including the symptoms list. So when you click on the pharmacy, we explicitly say what the pharmacy will help you with. And they felt a little bit confused about that. But in hindsight, it could be that for stomachache, it's a bit obvious. And we probably want to test this with a few more symptoms just to see how it plays out in terms of people's expectations. Some people felt that actually it provided a real personalised journey for them and they were quite glad that it was there. But we need to test it, I think, with a few more symptoms. There's some confusion from users around how the results in the pharmacy list are being displayed. And this was specifically around the tabs element. Some users expect to see their local pharmacy, they want to do best at the top of the list, but if it was closed, it wouldn't have appeared in the Open Now tab. So we're looking at how we best manage how we split the results between the tabs and whether we actually need tabs or whether we manage that in a more appropriate manner. When all or a majority of pharmacies are closed, we'd like to show some other alternatives. So this was a suggestion that actually if it's late and there's no open pharmacies, what can we do to help people get a resolution? Can we pull in a message saying you should dial 111, for example, or are there any other alternatives that we can pull out at this point? Because we're going to see during different times of the day that actually making different suggestions on a time-related basis might offer better guidance. Entering a location rather than a postcode. This is a weird one. I mean, entering a postcode is a pretty well-defined GDS pattern, and the application does say enter a postcode. 3 minutes. So I think it was raised, but entering a postcode is fine, and everyone understood exactly what it was. Also, a possible improvement could be improving the back button text. Currently it says back. Could we add some more contextual text there to say where you're back to? This is something we're going to review. And some users expressed the desire to see all the pharmacies on a single map rather than an individual pharmacy per map instance. And yet again, something that we'll test again and see how that fares. And there was the kind of the stretch goal of getting a pharmacy to ring you back and give you some advice over the phone. We don't think we're providing that straight away. One person mentioned that, and we need to figure out a bit more about our relationship with pharmacies to figure out what services they will and could provide in the future. So I said before that Unity use their own software packages for managing registration and booking an appointment. They use two. They use Patient Access and WebGP. For them, it's quite interesting because they have real seasonal peaks in people registering. They have 22,000 patients registering from the end of August to the middle of September. Previously, before they introduced these software packages, it would take over 2 weeks to get an appointment if you rung up on the day. Now, with the addition of the software packages, you can actually schedule appointments on the same day. So they found a massive improvement in efficiency by moving everything online. They don't offer any kind of phone-in or walk-in service whatsoever. Everything has to be conducted online. So a real sort of takeaway for us is how we integrate with some of these third-party GP systems that are already there and make them feel part of our connected services solution. The actions we've got to take is we've taken a lot of the suggestions and put them into both Sprint 46 and Sprint 47. We'll be discussing those in planning today. And the conclusion really is that we're on the right track with this implementation. There's nothing blindly obvious that's wrong with it, but there's some subtle improvements that we can add over time. So I think what we'd like to do is sort of draw a line under what we've got, add some of the subtle enhancements over the next couple of iterations, and then see how that plays out over a longer period of time, and start to gain some more insight using Hotjar, for example, and see what users think on a wider scale, and potentially using people from different demographics as well, rather than sort of the narrow student demographic that we used before. And that's pretty much everything I want to say. So now we've got the tech switch over.
Right. This should be straightforward. Ish. He says. If you can just come off mute, Matt, then I think we're good.
I just need to set up the other computer.
This one. Oh, this. Oh, I should have picked that up.
Can you see us and hear us okay?
Yeah, fine. Go for it. We'll mute.
Yeah? Cool. Brilliant. Thanks for that. So yeah, that's the end of the tech switch over. So quickly for London, we have some new joiners this sprint and some today. So apologies in advance for some of the pictures. But we have Dan who joined us. Dan, wait. We have Adam who joined us, who doesn't look like Stephen, but he's here. And we have Rich who joined us, who again doesn't look like Stephen and is there. So we'll get those pictures updated and put on the team profiles. Blogs? None. There was no blogs last sprint. So can everyone please think about blogs that they want to do, that they need to do, and go out, and they should go into planning. We're doing this on, well, M's there anyway, so yeah, we normally do.
Take a bit of credit for the Dan Sheldon one last night.
Yeah.
Still retweeted it.
Yeah, so we'll see if we can just think that one. But yeah, blogs, you know, we used to do at least a couple of sprint. You need to get across that rhythm. So London sprint goals. I'll pass over to Mike. Dan.
So we had 5 sprint goals in the conditions team this sprint. 4 of them were full sprint goals, and 1 was a stretch. So I'll talk about them quickly. So we wanted to publish the hernia content that we've been working on for a while, and we did that yesterday. And in celebration of that and of 2 recent birthdays in the team, I've cooked a hernia-themed batch of brownies. Not quite as glorious as the diabetes cake, but I'm pleased with the icing. Anyway, next goal was to identify representative conditions from our simple conditions cluster, and then write up the user needs for those. And that's something that we're going to talk about in a bit more detail later, but that was done. We wanted to sort out logistics for user research on simple conditions. It's almost done. Procurement, as ever, being slightly complicated, but I think we're almost over the line with that. And we wanted to agree the best way to analyse the existing feedback that we've had on the pages that we've published so far. Done that, we've been through and analysed that feedback. We've made some changes to the way in which we collect feedback as a result of that. So we deployed some changes to the feedback app earlier this sprint. The 5th goal, which was our stretch goal, was to agree what we'll do when we redirect from our first choices page to NHS.UK, and we haven't done that, but that will be carried over the next sprint. So, Matt, over to you to talk about register with a GP.
the other team in London is working on Register the GP. Recently had some sprint goals, so quickly talk through those. Complete the first draft of user needs and scenarios. So some registering user needs were done during the discovery, kind of back last year, but we've also done a lot working in practices, talking with practice managers, talking to people looking to register. So we wrote those up as a team, and actually something we're going to do next sprint is have a prioritised list of those as well. Complete the first prototype of the GMS1 journey. So if people have already seen it, or if you haven't, we can share a link with you. Our prototype was completed by basically going through the GMS1 form, which is the current form you use to register for the practice. Complete a project wall. So this was just about setting out on the wall what our vision is for an MVP, what would come with later iterations, when would we start to consider things like citizen identity, integrating with GP SOC systems, things like that, to try and set out a bit of a roadmap. So we have an assessment planned for the end of December. So what are the things that we're already aware of that we haven't done, we know we need to do, getting some lab time, looking at some of the policy and the like. So we've done that. And start alpha service assessment pack. So this is kind of a long slide deck, but it's a way for us to condense all of our thinking into one location. So we'll have our research in there, numbers, bits of the business case, what we've learned, what we've done, and what we've built. That's it from me. So, hernia.
Good work, Matt.
Okay, so yeah, this week we
Thank you. I'd say you
hello. Am I standing in front of the there we go. So this week I'm Danielle, I'm one of the designers working on NHS.UK, and this sprint we published the hernia content. Now a little clearer.
press down on.
Yeah, okay, no, too far. Cool. So we published the hernia content, which looks a little bit like this. And kind of what came out of that is we've sort of been developing a number of the new. Sorry, obviously not used to Clicker before. No good with remotes of any kind. So out of this, we kind of have created a number of new design patterns and also kind of been evolving some existing ones. So a good example of one of these is the call-out pattern, and now actually have like 6 variants on a call-out. And these patterns are kind of evolving all the time. And one of the things that's happening was we kind of got a good rationale for why we have 6 of these patterns currently. That might change as we sort of start to scale. We might find that some of them fall out of use as we kind of go on and scale across more of the simple conditions. And what we wanted to do is to kind of find a way to I guess document some of the conversations we were having, so we could probably come back and we're talking about these as we sort of scale the content. We kind of know why we've made decisions originally, so we were kind of having this discussion, which was how do we document kind of pattern iterations, because these are by no means finished patterns. But as soon as you start documenting things, what tends to happen is it kind of turns into kind of guidelines and they kind of become a bit set in stone. So this is kind of an ongoing thing that we're kind of looking at the moment, but how can we kind of capture all the sort of discussions that we're having and some of the patterns that are emerging in a way that's kind of quite loose and fluid, and not kind of pinning them down or creating like a sort of pattern library, as it were. So it's definitely not a pattern library, just to reiterate. So what we've got at the moment is we're sort of starting to gather together a lot of the things that have emerged from the hernia content and some of the previous work that's been done. At the moment, this is going to live in a sketch file on GitHub. We're still deciding what to call that repo. But the idea being that as we kind of iterate through, it's quite a kind of lightweight way to keep those patterns kind of evolving and up to date, and we can also sort of be able to sort of document the commits and see, you know, why we changed something, when we changed something, and you know, multiple people can kind of collaborate on it. It's not just sort of sitting on the Google Drive, sort of lost somewhere. So yeah, so that's where we are with that. Now we're on to Matt. with people.
Just using map, and there's the other map there. So I've just got a couple of quick slides that I want to talk about at the start, and then Matt will take over. So this really just about saying that registering with a GP being more than a form. So we've talked a lot about the similarity between registering with a GP and registering to vote, for those who know the GDS service that's been done. Also, we've done a lot of work around the GMS1 form, understanding what it does, what the questions are in it, what's important from it. As you can see, this is what a lot of practices link to at the moment. It's like, yeah, you can register online. Here's a link to the PDF. Don't know how to print it, don't know how to type into it, but yeah, do that. But what we are doing is not necessarily completely brand new. So you can start to do some registration with patient access, but it's not a full registration. They'll create you an account, it doesn't mean you're registered. You can, through some websites, on the My Surgery website, which is a company that builds surgery websites, start to complete in a digital version of the GMS1 form. What you will see, however, is a bullet point that says sending this form does not guarantee or even imply that you will be accepted onto the practice register. So you could do all of this work, get there, the list is closed. You could do all of this work and not be refused because you're out of the area. And these are the things that we need to think about rather than just digitising the form. And sometimes this also, as it says here, to do the hard stuff, this also sort of leads into other things that we started to look at, particularly in this group, which is around some of the legislation, which says that GMS1 form needs to be signed. So what does that mean in terms of signature? So last spring, we've asked the DH legal team just to investigate to find out what exactly signing means. Does it mean a wet signature on a piece of paper? Is it something that can be done online to start with? But I just wanted to show these beforehand, just to explain, I suppose, the challenge that is bigger than just this form. It's the context with what it sits in, what people are doing it for, why they want to get there, and how to get the service done. Because we can just digitise the form really quickly, but if it ends with people not knowing whether they're registered or not even knowing whether it implies a registration, it doesn't make the journey any better than it is now. So that was me, like a little pause to start with, but now I'll pass over to Matt.
Cool, thank you. Can't see the edges today. Well, it's people. Right. I'm going to go, yeah. I'm forwards. Right, so first up, we've got the GMS1 prototype up and running. Some basic, pretty standard sort of GDS interaction design going on. Have I got a stand on the X? Yeah. Alright. This is where the piano lands in. So that's the URL. So basically we're going to open it up, there'll probably be a blog post. It is kind of locked down because we don't actually really want people to accidentally come on and think they've registered with a GP. So hence the reason for kind of locking that one down a bit. What else have we done? So essentially that prototype tries to ape in a linear fashion the current GMS1. So what it's going to do is kind of hopefully expose some of the awkward questions. There's some really weirdly worded questions in the GMS1, like, are you from abroad? So, well, are you an immigrant? Are you an expat? Are you just on holiday? Like, there's some really kind of strangely worded, possibly honey trap type situation questions in there. So we want to kind of get feedback and bring that out. We've been putting the prototype in through patients and health seekers in waiting rooms, but also with practice managers like GPs, stuff like that. So just to try and dig into this a bit. And also obviously Matt's been digging into the policy side of it as well. So the next kind of stage is to start to really perhaps think about proposition rather than just digging a bit. So we're trying to sort of map out the ideas where, rather than just being like a completely linear process where you're like, no, yes, yes. Like, potentially there are certain things that preclude other things. Like if you're immediately returned from service in the armed forces, it's highly likely that you're probably not just come from abroad. Like you're not just going to be arriving in the country. So hopefully, even with the existing GMS1, there are certain things we can do to make this registration journey shorter and simpler and branch it slightly. Also, the other so this is the branching thing. I forgot to put the slide in, apologies. But yeah, so the idea of basically like, there are certain points where you could probably skip out a few bits. So aiming to make what is currently kind of big, long linear thing into something slightly shorter and easier. Also this sprint, we started to think about the proposition in sort of much more kind of, not futuristic, but kind of like login, a magical mythical ID that you can use. How does that affect your journey? Also, quite importantly, the idea that registering with a GP is essentially like one tiny chunk of a health-seeking journey. Like the smallest journey is, if you're like me and you're incredibly anal when you move house, it's on your list of things to do, like do the gas, do the electricity, oh, must register with the GP. But for a lot of other people, it's going to be like, oh, I've just moved. Oh, I didn't register with a GP like 6 years ago. I'm really ill. I need to get an appointment. So how do we, how does this fit into someone's overall health-seeking journey? And how can we make this either really, like it can either be the end of the journey in some places, but in many cases it's just going to be like a tiny part of it, and it's not something people, our hypothesis is it's not something that many people really want to focus on. What they're actually after is they're seeking help, like essentially. I think that's me running out of steam. Yeah, thanks very much.
Hello, hi, I'm not Stephen, it's not Stephen. I'm Henrik, and we're going to talk. We work in the content design team here, and we've started the first cluster of conditions to transform, and we're going to talk about how we identified the user needs for this cluster and what we did in terms of sketching the pages.
Hi, so I'm Stephen. I work with the content design team here, so that's Henrik, Ken, and Jason, and a couple of others. We spent the sprint looking at identifying, writing, and validating user needs for 4 of our simple conditions. A simple condition, for those that don't know, is basically from our beta and alpha work and analytics and stuff. We found within our 8 conditions that there are some that are the sort of things you can deal with yourself. You don't have to go to a GP, treat them at home, get a pharmacy, that kind of thing. So we call them simple conditions. And we're focusing in this on the last one we focused on 4, flu, diarrhea, giggling, mouth ulcers, sprains and strains. These 4 kind of represent broadly the themes that apply to all of the other 20-odd simple conditions. So what we're doing is trying to find content patterns and similarities to make our content production easier and quicker, so we can perhaps get a better sense of how quickly we can choose stuff. We looked at a whole load of feedback surveys and search logs to help us identify or begin to draft what the user needs may be in this particular area. So it's not complete. We're going to get our hands on the 111 call logs, which we hope will be really useful in identifying more user needs or helping us validate them or get a better sense of how we should be phrasing our user needs. And we're also going to be talking to lots of patients and GP interviews, and that's what is ongoing. So the user needs that we've come up with at the moment, they're draft, and we're going to be sharing them with the needs team. We're going to be peer reviewing and creating them amongst ourselves or our colleagues, trying to make it as collaborative as possible. This is us furiously going through, cutting up lots of user research, being very, very busy. You'll notice Clara was incredibly neat. I was incredibly messy when it came to using scissors, but never mind. But what we found is we grouped up all of this feedback. So we got about 200 pieces of feedback for each condition that we were looking at, roughly on average. And we just kind of sorted them quickly into piles, and then we spent a bit of time going through those piles and trying to pull out themes that were emerging from them. And the really interesting thing is people seem to want very practical and helpful information. And we really wanted to kind of get that foremost in our mind when we start writing about our user needs and expressing them, so that we're always keeping the user at the center of everything we're doing when it comes to content design. So it's, how do I get rid of things? How do I ease pain and discomfort? It's quite interesting. There's a difference here between treatment splits into 2 things. You want to get rid of the thing that you've got, or you just want to ease the symptoms. So lots of really useful things. I think as the guys in Leeds are finding out as well, that people want to know when I have to go to GP, what can I do myself? When do I have to bother the GP and take it that little step further? So for example,
If someone with flu, I want to get better, I have to get rid of it ASAP so I can get back to normal. And one thing about looking through all the user research, the research and the feedback, is we're getting a sense of the language that people are using. And it's really great to include that language in our formulation of the user needs. So get better, get rid of. People don't use words like treatment and anything else that you may find floating around the clinical doctor world. So it's really cool to use the language of users when we're formulating these user needs. Also, it helps us get away from this idea of a user need being, I want to know something. People don't want to know stuff, they want to do stuff. They want to get rid of the flu or prevent it and stop spreading it to their children or whatever. So this is just an example of some of the needs that we've been coming up with. And we'll be sharing those and getting them printed, creating our content plans as we move forward into the next sprint, sharing again those with leads. And this will really help us start to think about how we can meet those user needs. Is it flat content? Is there something more interesting or smarter content we can use to meet those needs as quickly and simply as possible? Bearing in mind that what people seem to be telling us at this stage is very much the kind of practical, pragmatic information. So how can we design our content and make sure that that experience is consistent the whole way through all our little conditions that we've identified as things you can do to treat yourself? And I can hand over to Heidi.
Right, so next we started sketching the pages, and here we are sketching away, and that is kind of a team effort between design and content. And what that means is that we prioritize the needs, we identify some possible features that will address the needs, and we spend a lot of time organizing the information, so what goes where on the page, for example. So that might sound like a lot of trouble, and you might think, why don't they just go off and write the bloody page? But what we're trying to do is identify new patterns and add to the patterns we have. Early on, identify where we need to link on to the journeys that leads are building, and also where a flat page isn't enough to address a user need. So for example, we've seen that there's a lot of confusion around flu jabs, lots of conflicting information when you're eligible for a free one, about allergies, etc., etc. So that might be an area where we will say, okay, just a flat page isn't enough. So what are we going to do next? We're going to build prototypes for these simple conditions. We're going to test them, iterate them, and then apply these learnings to the bigger batch of conditions, the remaining 20 that we have, and test them again. And all of this at the moment is like a test run. It's a test run for us as a team, how we work together, content in itself, and working with design and the devs, and to apply the learnings from this test run to the condition clusters that are coming up. So, for example, about seeing a GP and one of procedures in a hospital, that things we've already worked on, but we're learning a lot now that we will be able to use to scale the